Well, speaking of that disappointing jobs report number that we got out, we want to specifically take a look at the restaurant sector because restaurants still cannot find the workers that they need. And taking a look at the number of jobs added to that industry this month, it was only 29,000, despite the fact that so many of these restaurants are offering higher wages. Also, the unemployment rate in the industry is at 7.5%, well above the pre-pandemic levels. We want to bring in Bill Fahy. He's Moody's restaurants analyst. And Bill, it's good to see you. I guess, how significantly do you see the labor shortage holding back some of the recovery that we could be seeing in the restaurant sector today?
I think it's big. I think it's more for the mom and pops, though. I think the bigger, larger national, regional chains, they're going to be hurt too, but not as much. I think it's the more local guys. And like you said, if you look at the jobs report, and I think if you look at you drill down into the food services sector, I think it was flat month over month. So that's kind of confirmation of what we're hearing on the ground from the companies who have day-to-day experiencing this. And right now, it doesn't seem to be getting much better.
Hey, Bill, Brian Cheung here. So I guess one question is, if you're putting your kind of feet into the shoes of a restaurant worker, it's maybe the case that you just don't find the pay attractive enough to want to put up with what's probably a short-staffed kitchen, getting yelled at by customers, having to deal with the in-person contact with the risk of Delta still out there. But do we know if they're not choosing to be in the restaurant industry, where other industries they might be going to? Is it retail? Is it other types of maybe less contact industry? Is there any sort of data that shows where restaurant workers might be opting to go instead?
You know, I one of the questions I ask companies when I talk to them all the time is where have all the people gone? And you know what? I really haven't found a good answer. So really, where are they going? I'm not too sure. But like anecdotal evidence is, it's not easy being in a restaurant space. And you know what? If you want to go to a warehouse or something like that, that's air conditioned, you get the same pay. It might be a better option. But I think during the pandemic, what happened was the people had time to pause. The government gave them the financial ability to kind of look during that pause and reevaluate what they wanted to do in life. So to answer your question, I really haven't found out where they've gone. I just know that they haven't come back. And it's just not with the restaurant space either. I see it in other industries that we follow here at Moody's, and I see it in everyday life for myself. So not too sure where they've gone. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but nothing hard and fast right now.
So, Bill, speaking of that, the fact that these restaurants just simply can't find the workers, a lot of them have been turning to technology to try and help with efficiency, trying to close that labor gap. I guess, to what extent do you think the tech advances is it going to be enough to compensate for the fact that so many of these restaurants simply can't find the workers?
Not in the near term. I mean, technology has always been a big focal point of restaurants. The pandemic accelerated that. It will definitely help. It'll help with order kiosks when you go into McDonald's or you go into Chili's and they have the kiosks on a table where that'll enable a server who might have had, 5 tables before can do 8 or 10 tables now. So it's helping the efficiency of the workers that you actually have, but closing the gap and the inability to staff a restaurant now, it's technology is not going to help. But what it's doing, and the flip side is that you can't open up your restaurant to 100% of capacity. There's going to continue to be long waits. Prices are going to be higher. So those things that a consumer seems to have a tolerance for now will probably continue. So technology, definitely the biggest focus point for the restaurants going forward to help the consumer experience, but also to make the current staff more efficient.
What's the turnover look like in the industry in terms of openings and closures? Because we know anecdotally there are a lot of restaurants that just simply didn't make it through the pandemic. But at the same time, it's cheaper to get a bank loan right now to start up a new business. So do you feel like restaurant creation and new businesses are kind of plugging the whole one for one, or do you feel like it's more balanced one way or the other?
Not now. The biggest closures, from what I understand, are in the mom and pops. So the local guys, your local restaurants in your town, your not mostly pizzeria, but your other casual diners. That's where the biggest hit was taken. I'm hearing companies, their ability to grow or the barriers to entry in the restaurant industry are relatively low, but I'm not seeing a lot of creation at that level, mainly because they can't get staff. The larger companies, you're seeing the pipelines come back because they can offer higher pay, better non-wage compensation, like education, career advances, things like that. But the local restaurants, it's hard because they can't get the people. Everyday life, I think you see it as well. You go to a restaurant, hours are limited, it's a long wait time, and there's still challenges. So I don't think you're going to see a significant increase in the mom and pops as far as the number of restaurants come back, even with the low rate environment and everything's gone, because they just can't get the people to work.
Well, Bill, so we have the staffing issues clearly, but then there's also the supply chain issues, and people are paying more now than they were a year ago when they go out to eat. Certainly something that so many consumers are noticing at this point. I guess, to what extent do you think that could keep people then from going to restaurants? Are you significantly worried about that?
You know, it's funny because I think the biggest key right here for the industry now is the consumer seems to have a high tolerance level for not only prices, but long lines for all the things that are going on now. And I think the real margin pressure is going to come in when the consumer starts balking. But right now, it seems to be consumers are accepting of higher prices. They're accepting of longer lines, all of those things. So it's really the consumer seems resilient, both from a financial perspective. So that's the bigger question for me is when do the consumers start balking? Now, I've talked to a few companies lately over the past couple of days who they might start seeing the customer saying, you know what, I was here a couple of months ago and my favorite thing is $2. Or right now, your menu's so skinny down because you don't have the staff to be able to do that. You don't have my favorite thing. So I'm going to go down with the guy down the street. So I think you're starting to see fractures in that. But right now, the customer is willing to do it. And restaurants are resilient. And consumers want to dine out. They want to go out. And you saw that pent-up demand in the first and second quarter of this year. I think that will slow down a little bit. And I think the increase in the COVID variant, I think that might slow down in-restaurant dining. But demand will still be there. It'll go through. It's just the consumer who right now, they're willing to pay the higher prices and wait online for things.
All right, Bill Fahy, always great to speak with you, Moody's restaurants analyst. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.